2048, an upper bound. In science, an upper bound is the maximum value that an outcome could be. In science, knowing the bounds of a problem can help us understand if the hypothesis is reasonable. To understand why 2048 is an upper bound, we need to understand Matthew 24:32 through 34. It says, "From the fig tree learn its lesson. As soon as its branch becomes tender and puts out its leaves, you know that summer is near. So also, when you see all these things, you know that he is near, at the very gates. Truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away." What you need to understand is there's a very specific interpretation of this verse that applies to our time and is actually scientifically testable. From the fig tree, learn its lesson. In this interpretation, the fig tree is Israel. As soon as its branch becomes tender and puts out its leaves, this phrase is interpreted as meaning the birth of modern Israel in 1948. Putting out the leaves indicates the new life that wasn't there before. This generation will not pass away until all these things take place. This phrase is interpreted to mean that the church age will end before the generation that saw the birth of modern Israel will pass away. We could debate the interpretation, but there's really no need. We're living in a time where we can easily put it to the test. The key question is, how long is a generation? People have guessed 20 years, 40 years, 70 and 80 years, but no one argues those anymore because the scientific method, testing a hypothesis, has shown all of them to be wrong. In case you don't know, the interpretation we're discussing is typically associated with a pre-tribulational rapture. That means the rapture is expected at least 7 years before Christ returns to earth. Since you have to subtract 7 from the generation, even 80 years is too short. So here's the point. There is an upper bound. No matter what we guess a generation might be, it cannot be more than a current human lifespan. The average lifespan may be 70 or 80 years, but even Moses only lived to be 120. But Moses was an anomaly, so the interpretation becomes highly unreasonable after 100 years. But we still have a generation of people born before 1948. Until they pass away, the interpretation is still valid. 1948 plus 100 is 2048. If Christ does not return before then, it's highly unlikely that Matthew 24 is referring to the birth of modern Israel. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Look very carefully at what it says about the generation. Truly, I say to you, this generation will not pass away. The clear implication is that it will seem like the generation will pass away. But Jesus is promising it won't. There would be no reason to make this promise if all these things took place early in the generation. You're living in a very unique time in history for many reasons. A nation at the center of the Bible has been non-existent for almost 2,000 years, but there are people all around you that actually saw it come back into existence. There is a verse that many people believe points explicitly to the return of Christ within 26 years from now. Perhaps they're wrong, but perhaps they're right. We will soon know for sure. Let's put it to the test. Want to see more videos? Check out the other videos on this channel and the playlists. Also, since this is a new set of videos I'm creating, you may want to click on the subscribe button and the notification bell if you want to be notified when I post new videos. My intention is to keep them all quite short and focused. I hope you enjoy them and that they give you something interesting to think about as you consider Christ's possible return in your lifetime.